Welcome back to the Quick Speed Shop. I'm Josh, and here we are. Bam! Look at this. Working on a early engine dragster, Nailhead powered. Today we're going to set up the front end. Last time I got this axle all set up here. This is a Model A Ford axle. It's been dropped and windowed. They torched the center of the axle out. It's kind of too light duty for a street car, but for this dragster it's going to be super trick. I've set it up with 36 Ford spindles, and it's going to run a 36 Ford, early 36 Ford wide 5 open drums. So it's going to look like a spindle mount wheel. It's going to be super trick. Got some white wall wide 5s to run on those wheels. White wall slicks on the back. So today we're going to split the front wishbone, attach that here. I've got a new Speedway spring, like a Model A style spring. Got a new spring, got a kit to split the wishbones. I'm trying to build this thing all out of old Ford parts, but I didn't have time. I had the wrong front spring, and I didn't have time to find one in a swap meet, so I ended up buying a new spring, and I bought the wishbone kit just because it's easier to split with that. So I'll patina that stuff up. This is going to be a patina car when it's done, but let's get into cutting up the front wishbone and getting it ready to split and mount the front axle. So over here I've got my front wishbone. This is a 36 Ford front wishbone, which would have had the spring mounted out in front of the front axle. That's what these weird doodads are in front here, the front spring hangers. So they're going to get cut off. First thing I'm going to do is we're going to split it. We're going to cut it here, take out the factory ball mount, and put tie rod ends in here and mount these to the outside of the frame. And I'm just going to cut it right quick with the grinder. Yeah, let's go over here and do that. Okay, it's the next day. Let's take a look at the front end here. I stuck it together. Like I said before, these wishbones were 2-inch for a 2-inch boss axle, and this axle is 2 1/4. They were spread just a little bit wider too, but I ended up grinding the boss on the bottom of the axle down. Now I wouldn't do this on a street car axle. I would leave it at 2 1/4, and I would get a wishbone to fit, but for this dragster, it's fine. I got it on there. So I got the perches on here. These are aftermarket street rod perches that I'm going to paint up black. I wanted to run these original style old chrome shackles. So I had these original spring perches too I wanted to run. But unfortunately, I just realized somebody had cut the stud off the bottom of this one, and it's not long enough to go all the way through the axle. Put the nut on it, and actually these are short too. I got a bunch of hanging out the nut, which I also want to run on a street car, but for this display dragster around the yard, display dragster is going to be fine. So I got these temporarily bolted in. I got new plastic or urethane bushings or whatever they are that go in there that came with a Speedway kit. So the reason I can't use these shackles is the diameter on here is too big to fit in the plastic bushings because they're meant to fit a stock early Ford spring hanger, spring perch. So the bushings are all different, and I could order like a Speedway set of, shackles to go with the modern style bushings, but they're like 30 bucks for essentially 4 bolts and 2 pieces of steel. So I think I can just make my own spring hangers real fast out of some plate steel. These are leftover Dodge ones I had, and I can use 1/2-inch bolts because they will go through these bushings and not use a sleeve or nothing. I'll just use some 1/2-inch bolts. It'll look homemade, which will help disguise the aftermarket spring hangers a little bit. But that's the next step to get the spring hung in here. Now I back the center bolt in the spring way off so I can spread the lower leaf. I can almost do it by hand. This thing doesn't have any tension on it. Now I might just put the lower leaf in and reassemble the spring on there. It'd probably be easy. But once they get everything kind of like bolted up in, I'll show you how these work. Since I cut the back of the wishbone off, to split the wishbones, they got these threaded bungs from Speedway that are going to go right in here. They fit tight. There's like a weld seam and stuff in here. This one slips in better. There we go. So they slip in, leave them hanging out just a little bit, weld the seam up. You know, if you leave it tight, you hardly get any penetration there, so you want to back them out a little bit. Get a good weld seam on them, then tie rod ends thread into these, and then the tie rod end will bolt through this, and this will bolt to the side of the frame somewhere, and that mounts your thing. So I want to get this front end all mocked up under the front of the car, and then we can figure out our spring hanger, which is going to be a plate coming off the bottom of this out here somewhere. The spring will be out here, then I'll gusset it down, and we'll get the whole front end mounted up on. Alright, I made my little pieces here. Let's put this front end together. I took all the leaves off the spring because this spring is small enough I can force it by hand or spread it out by hand to get the shackles on. So I'm just going to put the driver's side together first, just because it's easiest. I left the pieces of steel squared off. I didn't really round the edges, kind of like, you know, back in the day somebody would have been building this in a hurry and they didn't bother to round any of the edges off. That seems like something that would have happened back in the day. The fit and finish wasn't on stuff what it is today on most things, or well, most backyard things anyways. And I didn't paint these because I'm going to leave them a little bit rough, and I'm just going to fog some color on them later and leave them a little bit patina. So this is perfect. Now I should be able to stretch somehow. I'm going to have to do this. How am I going to do this? Whoa. Okay, I had to shorten up my spring spreader over here. Usually it's a piece of pipe and there's two pieces of all thread, and they go through here on both ends, and these go into my receivers that push on the spring eyes. It was way too long because I made it for a rear spring, but I was able to take a piece of square stock and one set of threaded rod, and I clamped my bracketry that pushes on the spring eye over here, and I'm able to make a one-sided spring stretcher. I can probably just crank this by my hands. Maybe not. And that will, of course I don't have a wrench big enough to run that. Wait a minute, I just got some big wrenches. Where are they? How are we looking? Go a little bit more. Next question is the spring going to flatten out and hit the spring spreader before it can be bolted up? That is the... No, I'm getting close. About a ½ inch to go, but I'm getting real close to hitting. Dang it. Almost there. Got the leaf stretched right out. It's still an inch short. This is a 29-inch spring. You tell me I had the right spring altogether, the right 31-inch spring. Wait a minute. Oh no. Come on now. No, 29's got to be right. I made the... That's almost 31. Is this spring even wider than that? It's Spring's like 31.5. Wait a minute. What in tarnation? Might have screwed up here. Might have screwed up. Don't worry, it's only money. Oh, mercy. Crying in the sink. Let's get this off right quick and take a look. Take a look, see. So, let's put this guy in. I'm guessing this is a Ford spring. It's gotta be. But it's gonna be too long. Let's look. Let's look and see, because you shouldn't be able to put it together by hand like this. Because if you can, the spring is too long. See that? Without any weight on it, my shackles are already at a 45-degree angle. I know it's wrong. This I don't know what this spring fits, but it's I measured here, it was 31.5. Dang it. And that's what it is. It's 31.5. I need a 31-inch spring that's, when it's eye to eye, it's, well, a 31-inch spring, when it's flattened out is how they measure it. So when you get them, they're sucked in. Like this 29-inch spring right now, if I measure this, I'm sure it's going to be less than 29 from the hole to hole. That's 29. 29 on the freaking money. Right here, right now, I'm 31.5, not compressed, just loose. So this spring is going to flatten out, but low down it to like 33. Yeah, the spring's too wide. Now, right now, this is where it should be sitting at ride height, is at 45-degree angles, and there's no, there's no load on a spring whatsoever. But when I put the 29-inch spring in, it didn't want to flatten out enough to hook up. You'd want the spring, let's see, relaxed. When the spring's relaxed, the shackle should be straight out, and you might need to spread it a little bit to put it in there, so when the spring works, it goes down. That's too short. This spring is too long by like, spring's too long by like half an inch or so, or an inch. Dang it. All right, so I figured out what I'm gonna do. New spring on order from Speedway, 31-inch spring, it'll be the right one. So that'll be here in a couple days. But in the meantime, check this out. This spring actually, when your front end is set up correctly, the shackles are at a 45-degree angle, and the spring is just about the right width. Well, here, I'll show you this. My homemade shackle is hitting the wishbone here, so I gotta grind her down a little bit. But this spring kind of lays out at the correct angle, and it's pretty much the same height. I held the 29-inch spring up, and they're about the same height when that thing is laid out. So I can go ahead and use this to mock the suspension up. It's going to work fine. And then when I get the new one, I'll just swap it out and put it in like it's actually supposed to be used. So we're going to continue on. Crisis averted. It's only another $85. Why stop now? So next here, let's put the bungs in for the wishbones. I just stuck these in. This one's a little bit tighter fit, so it's locked in good. This one's a little loose, so I can show you. I think I already showed you once, but I'm going to leave these sticking out about that far. Tack them, do like a root pass in, and then a cover pass, burn these on good. And then we can spin in the tie rod ends and hang the frame brackets there. But before we do that, we'll build the front. Before we do that, we'll build the front spring perch. It's going to mount off here, and then get that dialed in, swing the front end around, and lay it right on out. Bam, that worked out pretty good. Here's the tie rod ends we're going to be using on those. Here, there's Speedway tie rod ends. Now I put anti-seize on the threads. You're going to want to put anti-seize on the threads of these tie rod ends before you thread them into the bungs. Ask me how I know. The last time I split a wishbone and I threaded this in just for trying it out without anti-seize, it galled and got stuck in my bung. That's what she said. And I had to cut the bung out and put another one in. No good. So I've anti-seized the crap out of this. And I'm just gonna, I've counted out the threads on the jam nuts the same. So they should be going equidistant. I'm just gonna run this guy in. Let's see, where do I want it facing? Inboard. One more, right about there. Just go and stick my jam nut in. Now these are obviously adjustable in and out. This is how you set the front end. Make sure the front end's true, you know, not squeegee-jawed, as you can adjust these tie rods and drag the axle back and forth either way. Bam. Right, so now we got those in there. Over here, I'm working on the suicide mount off the front cross member. This is a T front cross member upside down because the spring would be in it this way, but I flipped it. And now I've made the started making a plate here. It's the same thickness as the frame, like 1/8 inch plate steel. I drilled it out for the same as the spring. This is like a Model A bottom piece. This will go under the spring and hold the bolts like that. It's all cast iron, or probably cast steel. I'm gonna forge steel. So if I just made it out of a plate like this, it's gonna be super wonky, and it's gonna want to flex real bad like that. So I was going to make like a side gusset and like tie it in here or whatever. And then I thought about, you know, since we're kind of building this, kind of like somebody would have done out of the day, out of the scrap. I have this piece of steel that was cut out for something. But if I bend it here, I want to box across this cross member to double it up. If I weld that on top and then bend this piece down and weld it across here, I can still get the bolts in for the spring hanger. But it'll triangulate this mount, and I don't know. It's kind of ugly and goofy, but it's either that or it'd be cleaner to make pieces to tie in here. But I'd really like to get back and tie the whole thing in. And if I did this, then I'd still have to box. I don't know. I think it's going to be stronger to make it like a triangle and triangulate it like that and have that be tied in. All right, bam! Check this out. I've got the whole front end stuck under here. You see how my suicide perch works here, uses that clamp on the bottom and bolts up on there. 4 1/2 inch bolts, I can't count. Center pin locates it. I've squared the axle front side and it's diagonal. It's square diagonally to the chassis. I changed my mind. Where did it go now? Instead of putting that stupid big piece of strap steel over, I came up with something way better. I'm going to weld this piece of tubing in here like this, and then trim this off around here. I've got to drill a hole in the bottom to go over the spring, but that'll be way cleaner. That'll weld in here, and then I'm going to take another piece of this and put it down in here, and just 1.5 inches of it, and weld it across here to tie the cross member together. But this will stiffen the mount way up. And I've got some inclination in my front end caster. See how it's leaned back? I didn't measure it, I just eyeballed it. It's close enough for what we're doing, but it's probably about, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 degrees. But I laid it out. Part of the reason it's got that is I leaned the steel plate, I bent it, so it's leaning back, so most of it's in the spring. And then I also, it's going to work out good for these bolt-on plates. They're going to be right in the center of the frame. I've got them equidistant back, and the whole thing is square right now. So I'm going to drill the frame. We'll bolt these through the 2 bottom holes, and then I'm going to bend this over, and it'll lay on top of the frame, so it'll be like an L, and it'll clamp on the frame both sides. But that is going to work out good. I might need to heat and drop these steering arms just a little bit for the tie rod to clear the wishbone pieces here. I can just heat them here, bend them down, and heat them, bend them back up, and drop the arms down and get the tie rod underneath. I like that it's open. It's going to give a nice clean look. No tie rods or nothing in the front. I've got a neat old hot rod piece to steer it. I got the steering arm. There it goes. From my buddy Dylan. It's chrome plated, but it's banged up, so it'll look good for action. It bolts onto the steering arm, if I could get this all around, and steers with a tie rod end for our drag link, so that would bolt onto the steering arm here. It's pretty low down here with the drop axle. I'm thinking it might need to be flipped upside down and go like this, be up here for the drag link to get back to where it's going to be on the body. You probably have to do something like that. And it's that way the tie rod will be upside down on it because it's only tapered one way, but that's okay. I can steer off there, or I can try to maybe taper it the other way. But anyways, I'm thinking about using that because I think it'd be cool to have a little piece of old, you can see the chrome's all off it. Have an old piece of banged up chrome on the front end. Just a little piece of eye candy. But that would steer down to the drag link down the side of the chassis. So I got that. But it's laying out really good. This is working out really well. It's going to be awesome. Just take a look at it here. That dropped axle down. It worked out perfect with the spring and the way the upside down T frame kind of mimics the arc of the spring. That looks pretty trick to make the suicide mount. Then you got the drop windowed axle here. And without anything in the front, I can still weld some tabs on it to use my vintage tow bar, which is made out of another Wishbone. This is an old hot rod piece that I got from a guy in the club. Super old school. Look at this really old trailer clevis, and it's all torched and just stick welded together. Super trick, but that would bolt onto the front axle if you wanted to tow bar the thing around. It might be neat to display it with that on the front. Maybe, we'll see. Well, holy cow, it's the next day. Check it out, the chassis is together. I can't believe it. Bam, how awesome does this look? Holy moly. So I mounted the rear end just off camera here. Just got a little 1x2 channel here that bolts to the frame. I'm going to have a little third link come up to these brackets down in the frame here to help with torsional action. I can't remember if it's this video or a previous video. I showed you where the rear end had been broken. I welded that back up, so that's fixed. The rear end is bolted. We're down on the ground. Check it out. The front end is all together. I don't know if the suspension is going to work because I think it's already bottomed into the wishbones, but I give her the bounce test. That's working a little bit. But bam, how's that look? Got our suicide mount up here all good, tied all the way through. When I take the spring out, I just got to finish weld it here. Got our dropped axle. Oh, here's I forgot the drums. Check this out. Bam. Now, some of these studs are pretty nasty, so I was only able to get a couple lug nuts on for now. But these are the whole reason I wanted to do this, these early 36 windowed drums. I'm going to call them window drums. This is all, that looks just like a spindle mount mag wheel from, drag racing. It's super cool. Nobody's got this look going. I've only seen a couple of cars on like the Ham or whatever have these drums. Super, super, super hard to find. And actually, this one, the studs are even worse. I was able to kind of get 2 lug nuts on. Just for you guys, if you're doing restorations or early hot rod stuff, the 36 only spindle takes a short castle nut, which I had one good nut on here. See how thin that is, so you can put a cotter key in it. If you get the regular castle nuts, they're too wide. See how this is right off the spindle. I'll have to grind that down or something later and get a different castle nut. That's beside the point. But this is super awesome. The wishbone mounts are going to be good. I'm just going to cut them right here, bend them over, bolt through the top, so it'll be like an L. They'll grab the frame here. I've got to measure up for a tie rod end. I think I need to drop these steering arms because the tie rod is going to hit the wishbone. I'll heat it right here in another video with a torch, bend them down. Usually you bend them down, then you bend the tail up. I think I can just bend these down enough to get under, just to clear under here. It's going to be okay just to do that, enough to get by. That'll be fine. Oh, I'm also playing around with the seat. Now, this pad here, this is the center for my bucket seats that go in the Dodge truck project over there. The back is up on that shelf. This is the center that goes in the center here. But it fits perfect in here. Just for the show, I can take it with the vinyl. It's all grungy, which is going to match. It fits in the seat pan. So I've got to cut the seat pan down anyways to clear the rear end. So I'm going to cut it right across here, weld a piece of tubing in, cut the whole front of the seat off so it sits up level. But it'll be awesome just to drop that pad in for the show. Don't need a back. I'm sure nobody ran a back in the seat because you just sit against it, but probably want a little bit of pad to sit on. So I'm working on getting that going. But I'm super, super excited to have this thing. Look, well, the jack's under it back there holding the seat up, but it's super awesome to be rolling. I love the dropped windowed Model A axle. Super cool. All kinds of neat wizardry going on here. So that's where I'm going to leave it for this one. Like I said, I screwed up on that spring. That should be here in a couple days. I'll get that swapped over. The next video, which I'm going to start right now, is swinging the nail head over, building some mounts, get the nail head mounted up in this thing so we can really see what it's going to look like. I got an idea. I'm going to make like a short, like 1 foot drive shaft. I've got an idea for a fuel tank. I got my steering ideas. I just found the steering wheel I'm going to use. I want to get the seat mounted. I'm going to start thinking about some kind of crude roll bar. And I've got an idea for some body work. So there's going to be a lot of fun stuff coming together, putting this thing together. I really appreciate everybody watching. This is a super cool build. I cannot wait to build weed burner headers and fire this nail head up and drive this thing around. It's nothing that I've ever had, like, in... Nobody around here has got something like this. So I'm really excited to build it. And I can't wait to take it to the Buffalo Motorama. If you're going to be in the Western New York area, March 24th through the 26th, this dragster will be at the Buffalo Motorama in the open wheel room for fenderless hot rods and race cars and motorcycles. They got the open wheel room there. It's always cool, put on by those guys. So this car will be there, and hopefully you guys can stop out and check it out. So until then, I'm going to keep wrenching. We'll get the motor dumped in this thing next time. Bam. Don't forget to like, subscribe. We'll see you here building cool dragsters, Deathtrap dragsters at the Quick Speed Shop. I'm a professional. Don't try this at home.